Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brewing with Jim.
Yes, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you listeners are here, too.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a show where we get audience questions, and we try to provide some advice or some answers. I'm Joseph Jasper. I typically ask the questions, and
I'm Jim Brewington.
Wonderful.
And I work with Joseph to answer the questions.
I love it, yeah.
Okay.
So we've got a question today from our audience. This is a very spiritual question. I remember growing up asking this, or at least pondering this with Bible classes and youth groups and stuff like that. The question is, does God really give people trials in life to test their faith?
Oh, wow, okay.
That is a
I've heard that question before.
loaded question, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is God's motivation in giving people trials in life? First of all, we have to decide, does he? Because that's the question.
It is, yeah.
Does he? And I can't speak for him other than what he has spoken for himself, and that would be in his word.
Yeah.
There are some instances where he has spoken directly and spiritually to people to make decisions in their life. Was Abraham's taking Isaac up on the altar to stab Isaac, for Abraham's stabbing of Isaac? Was that a test? It could well have been a test, but why would God do that? Because he would already know what the outcome is.
Right.
And so God clearly, because of his attribute of omniscience, would not test somebody to discover knowledge.
Sure,
Or to
that's
discover
right.
some reason if somebody would do something. So that's clear.
Yeah.
Now, would he create a situation would he create a situation and put someone in it, or someone would be in it, so that they could have a realization of their own faith? Maybe.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I can't speak for
Yeah.
his motivation all the time, except to say that everything he does is love.
Yeah.
And he does it in love. So he's not playing gotcha with
That's right.
his
Absolutely.
creation.
Yeah.
Does he test us? We are in an environment that is cursed. We live in a cursed creation on a cursed earth. And that's going to create difficulties for us, does create difficulties for us. Is each one a test of our faith? I don't view it that way, but when our faith is, when we are using the faith that God has given to us, and faith is a gift from God, it means trust. I trust him. I trust him for knowing what I am going through.
Yeah.
Maybe even empathizing or sympathizing what I am going through. When I cried, is he sad? When I cry, is he crying with me?
Yeah.
Or is he just walking with me and holding my hand, putting his arm, figuratively speaking, anthropologically speaking, on my shoulder? Yes, and I know that.
Yes.
Because I will always be with you. I will never forsake you. These truths that come from his word are a comfort to me. And so I know that I am in a cursed creation. I live in an unredeemed body.
Mm-hmm.
My spirit is redeemed because of the salvation and what Christ's work was on the cross, and his righteousness has been imputed to me.
Yeah.
I am that, but I still am in an imperfect body.
Yeah.
And if you think that's not the case, just look at me. This is, I have learned to avoid every mirror in the house. That is just not a pleasant experience anymore. So we have an environment that we live in, the cursed creation of the earth currently, and an unredeemed body. Mm-hmm. And so we are dependent upon him for companionship, for love, for counsel, for comfort, for all these things God has promised to us for those of us who are in Christ.
That's right.
And now we can reject Christ. We know Christ. I can tell you from Romans chapter 1, but some people have repressed the truth and become fools, thinking they are wise.
Yeah.
If that's the case, there is no acknowledged intelligence about who God is, but there is a rejection also of his companionship, of a relationship with him, of the comfort from the Holy Spirit, and so forth. So, does he test us? I would say no.
Yeah.
He does not. Life is a test anyway. I'm not going to get into the free will argument, yes or no, but we make decisions to abide by his spoken will and desires for us and his goodness coming to us, or to reject and rebel against that. To reject and rebel against that is not necessarily a punishment. It's just the natural consequence of being outside of his will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
This is such a loaded question. I'll just be honest. And I say loaded, not that I think the asker has nefarious purposes.
No.
But it's loaded in the sense that this gets, like, any way you start to uncork this question gets into a classic, like, theological I don't say minefield in like a negative sense, but just like it's like can of worms, basically. You mentioned free will, for instance. This question can so easily draw us into a semester-long course that's all about free will.
Right, and you can read the classical positions on it, and they all have long names.
Exactly. This question could so easily bring us to another can of worms, which is like the problem of evil, or theodicy, as it's called. How can a perfect God allow, a perfect, all-powerful, loving God allow any pain and sin and suffering? And, that's a whole theological debate that goes back thousands of years itself, right? This question is like a seed that could so easily blossom into these massive, entrenched directions. What I would say, to keep it simple and to keep it kind of fundamental, knowing that our audience and knowing that this question asker is probably an adolescent, would simply be to say, the fact that this is a question that you're wondering means, and I do not say this disparagingly, but you have maturing to do. And you will experience God in so many more ways than you can imagine as you grow older. This is the question of a curiosity, less than an experience, I think.
Well, I don't know.
This is an assumption.
We can't know.
This is an assumption on my part. But what I would say then is, Jim, you mentioned a few minutes ago the idea that we live in a cursed world, a broken world, a sinful world, and there's this phrase that I hear thrown out very often, especially by Christians. This idea that everything happens for a reason. I'm sure you've heard that.
I have heard that. Before. I don't buy it, but
I don't buy it either, and I think that however. I think that the idea that everything happens for a reason is enough in sort of the cultural lexicon, especially within Christian cultural lexicon in America, that if a person does, in fact, if they've heard the phrase, everything happens for a reason, and if they come to internalize and believe, in fact, that everything happens for a reason, this is where our question for the episode comes from.
Okay.
Well, then, if someone's going through something super difficult, just completely depraved, a child gets cancer or a plane crashes.
Right.
Everything happens for a reason. What is the explanation? You know what I mean?
The thinking is faulty to begin with.
I agree with that.
God can turn all things to good for those who love him and are called in accordance with his purpose. Mm-hmm. That's from God's word. Mm-hmm. Now, Does he turn all things into good? He can turn all things into good. He can turn a crucifixion into a resurrection. There are opportunities for us to learn from that which is bad, but he can create good from a bad situation or from a calamity or from a tragedy.
Yeah.
And what is that good? He defines what's good there. He knows what he's doing. We often don't.
Yes.
And when that happens, is that a test? No, it's not a test. No. When I'm a parent and I tell my young child, don't run into the street, am I testing him to see what his obedience and his loyalty to me and my advice is? No, I'm not. I'm trying to prevent him from being hit by a car.
Yes.
And that's not a test in any of the commonality meanings of the word test.
Yeah.
So, again, here we have a question coming in is, does God test us? My answer to that would be no.
Yeah.
Now,
I agree with
that.
that.
There could be some instances in the Old Testament and the New, where God appears to be interacting with his creatures, with man, with humanity, individuals, and it appears to be that he is challenging them to some obedience.
That's right.
His desire is that we exercise the faith that he has given to us.
That's right.
Without that faith, it's impossible to please God. That's his word, not mine.
Absolutely.
So I would say no, that he does not test us.
Yeah. And classic example of the Bible story about tests and trials is probably the book of Job.
Yes.
That's like the first thing that comes to mind, where Job is this wealthy and healthy man who has this really great life, and slowly everything is taken away from him.
But was God already knew how Job would react to all of this. God has all knowledge, past, present, and future. Mm-hmm. And he has all experiential knowledge intuitively. He doesn't have to experience something in order to understand it, as some have taught.
Yeah.
So he knows what Job is going to do. He didn't initiate that to test. He allowed that when Satan asked him permission to interact with Job in a way that would be harmful, apparently, to Job.
Yes.
And that was not a test.
That's right. Then the classic follow-up to that is, well, then why would God allow, why would God agree to the terms and allow that to happen to Job? I think of, the testament that becomes Job's life, that it becomes a book of the Bible that has been read by, hundreds of millions, billions of people. Like, well, that's the testament now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Anyway, I forget where I was going to go with this next, but
well, you were talking about why would God allow this to happen to Job?
I just think my fundamental answer to this question would be no. Like, God does not throw obstacles in your path to see how you'll do.
That's true, but he does allow them to be there, and they're going to be there inherently anyway, environmentally anyway, because of the cursed creation.
Yeah. Our world, you use the word cursed. I would add the word, our world is just chaotic.
Oh, it's broken. Everything's broken.
It's broken. The natural world runs its course. There are natural disasters. There are earthquakes and volcanoes. There are asteroids.
The weather is broken.
You know what I mean?
The government is broken.
Yeah.
The church, to a large extent, is
right.
broken.
Yeah.
Every human being is broken.
Yeah.
Everything is broken. And relationships are broken.
Yeah.
Even education is broken. It just goes on and on.
Right.
Well, is it ever going to get fixed? And the answer is yes, because God is going to recreate, that is to renew a new heaven and a new earth.
That's right, yeah.
And it will be fixed.
You exist in a cascading number of systems that you cannot control.
Cascading is good.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's a good word. It's not a good concept.
Sure. No, I know.
Yeah.
No. And so, life is going to be chaotic. Life is going to be random. Life is going to be dangerous.
It is dangerous.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Any of us could get hit by a bus later today.
Yeah, he doesn't make the roads less bumpy.
Right.
He makes the person strong in him to take care of the bumpy road.
I love it. I think it's a good place to honestly leave off on this.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Let's go to our second segment.
Okay.
This is the Surprise Jim segment. And it's a question that has nothing to do with the first, and it's just something that particularly you don't know ahead of time.
No, I don't.
So the question for you today that I've got is can you just tell us about what your experience was like on your wedding day? Did it go according to plan? Did anything go wrong? What is your memory of the day that you married your wife, Debbie?
Well, yes, I can. Those are they're just important moments in a person's life, and you remember the birth of my children and my wedding day. Yeah. And I remember before the wedding, we were married in Honolulu, and my parents had flown from the mainland to Oahu for the wedding, and Deb's mom was there. The dad couldn't come because he was so busy at work. Now, it's not busy at work necessarily. They didn't have the money. Sure. And I didn't know that at the time. But I remember being dressed and ready to go. I wore white pants, and I wore a white ruffled shirt, and I had a red sash on and the Hawaiian stuff around my neck.
Amazing,
and all
yeah.
of that. Okay. And I was sitting in the living room of our place, and my dad was there, and I thought, am I doing the right thing? It seems like the right thing. But a lot of marriages don't make it, and how do I know? And I had all that analytical thinking going on in my mind instead of jumping up and down with joy, and this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I didn't think that. Yeah. And it turned out it is the best thing that ever happened to me. But we went to the wedding, and I was married in an Episcopal church in Honolulu. And as far as the ceremony was concerned, I think it was okay. I wasn't really there. Sure. I was thinking about other things. I was thinking about Debbie. I remember when I saw her in her dress, it was jaw-dropping to me, her beauty. Yeah. And I was, oh my goodness, I'm not worthy of her. Oh, yeah. I'm not. But we went through the ceremony, and then we went to back to a house for the reception. It was all put together by other people. Oh, it's wonderful. And it was very, very nice. And and so we had the reception, and I kept looking at her thinking, oh my gosh.
I can't believe it.
Oh, wow. I never thought this would happen. It was and that was all a social blur to me too. I have vivid pictures in my mind of many incidents at that reception, but I generally don't have an overall view. And then we got on I couldn't get off work very much. I was working in Honolulu.
Sure, yeah. And, is that at the restaurant?
Yes, in Waikiki. And the closest, we honeymooned on Maui. Mm-hmm. And we just got on the plane, and the Hawaiian Airlines that goes between the islands, those guys fly like fighter pilots. And we went over there and in Kahanapali, Maui, and we had a great time. But I remember the first sitting at dinner with her. I remember also in the airport, she got on the phone and talked to her dad. And,
that's great.
And then she said, this is Debbie Brewington. Oh. And then she looked at me, and it was the first time she'd ever said that. And I thought, that happened to be, that's an indelible memory for me that she said that. Yeah. And we had a rushed but pleasant weekend, really. And then we had to fly back to Oahu and go to work, and she had to go to school. And so this is not this story seems to me to be dull to anybody who's listening to it.
I think it's beautiful. And granted, I benefit from seeing. Our audience doesn't get this, but I'm seeing your face as you're telling the story. And Jim, you're beaming. Like this is clearly a.
It was all a good memory. It's a very good memory, and there are people I remember now, who worked with Debbie, who counseled that she not marry me, and this will never last. We're in our 52nd year of marriage.
It's incredible.
And it has lasted, and if I had it all to do over again, I would pick her.
Yep, absolutely. Who officiated the wedding? Was it a friend? Was
No,
it your pastor?
it was an Episcopal priest.
Okay.
And I wasn't that involved in the church at the time, but I had been, because I was in the Navy, and that's just,
Sure.
you just have the chaplain dude on the ship and so
Yeah.
forth. And I had to find an Episcopal church because I didn't know how else you do it. I was ignorant of all of these things. And I don't remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who
Yeah.
he was. He just did the
It
wedding.
was just the guy that was there.
And
Yeah.
premarital counseling, we sat in his office for maybe 10 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that was it for premarital counseling.
That's hilarious.
And then
What were those even 10 minutes about? Like, was
do you
anything?
do you remember? No. Do you realize this is forever? And do you realize that now are you both Christians? And I gave the bobblehead up and down yes. And I wasn't a Christian like I am now. I was a Christian, but I was not a follower of Christ. And that didn't happen until later. And so the wedding reception, it's fine. We didn't spend a lot of money on the wedding.
Yeah.
I counsel people now, don't spend money on the wedding, spend money on the marriage.
Yes.
These hundreds of thousands of dollars weddings, maybe that's an exaggeration.
That's ridiculous.
But a large suitcase full of money
Absolutely.
that people spend on the wedding.
Yeah, on a couple of hours. Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, me neither.
And since then, being a pastor, I have done a gazillion weddings. And some of them have been elaborate, and most of them have not been.
Sure.
Backyard weddings, living room weddings with intimate friends nearby. I think that's much more important than the big day. That is it a big day for the groom? Not that much, I think, for the wedding, for the bride, yes. And I have had grooms-to-be come to me and say, I'm not making any decision. It's my wedding. Why can't I have these decisions? And this is not a prelude to marriage necessarily, but this is not your day. This is the bride's day, and it's going to be the bride's mother who makes the decisions. And I would suggest you just get out of the way and enjoy the ceremony, and then you are the spiritual head of the family.
Sure.
And all that teaching. Okay.
How funny.
Yeah.
That's great. Did anything on your wedding day go wrong? Did things not show up?
I don't think
did
so.
Food,
No.
Okay.
And if that had been the case, I'm not sure I would have known.
That's right.
Nor cared.
That's it.
No. There was the punch, there was the cake, there was all the stuff.
Yeah.
But it was in our house.
Yeah.
In the house that we were living in Hawaii Kai. And no, I don't know if anything. If it went wrong, I didn't know it. And if it had gone wrong and I knew it, I wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. Thanks for sharing all that. It's fun to recount that. It's fun to compare that to like the experience of my wedding. Like pretty similar. It was really positive. If anything went wrong, it was we were shielded from it, and someone else took care of it.
Right. Right.
It was a lovely day, and it goes by so fast. That morning you wake up and you go, oh, what a day we have ahead of us, and before you know it, you're leaving the reception, in your toilet papered car. That was my experience. Again, so many mechanisms are happening without your awareness on your wedding day. But it's honestly the best.
I feel I feel different. I was going to say I feel sorry for, but there are people who plan weddings and then they plan the reception, then there's the evening dinner, and it's a huge social event.
Yeah.
And I tend to flee from social events anyway. So we got out of the reception at an appropriate time, the proper time, and left.
Yeah.
And what happened in our trail? Back at I have no idea what happened.
Yeah, someone must have cleaned
never
that
asked,
up,
never cared.
Someone,
yeah,
it's wonderful. All right, thank you very much to our audience. Thank you for listening. As always, we want to
Yes.
extend the invitation for you to reach out to us, should you so please. We have an email address set up that is brewingwithjim@gmail.com. That's where you send all your questions.
Please use it.
Yeah. If you have any kind of message or story for us that you also just want us to hear, that's where you can send it. It's brewingwithjim@gmail.com.
Also, if you're sending a question, can you give us the reason you're asking it?
Yeah.
And that will direct us.
Some
somewhat.
background, yeah.
Yes.
With that, y'all, again, thank you for listening. Have a great week.
Take care.
The topics that are covered and the answers that are offered during episodes of Brewing with Jim are designed to mine the wisdom attained from a life of pastoral ministry and care. They do not constitute professional or clinical training or expertise in the areas of counseling or mental health. CVCS and its podcast network want to provide a platform for the discipleship of our community. Brewing with Jim is our attempt to foster that environment in a format that is accessible for everyone to participate in. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed during the show are the speaker's own, and they may or may not represent the views, thoughts, or opinions of Capistrano Valley Christian Schools or its faculty. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK through 12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.